Hello and welcome to the Valley. Today I am your host Janet Michael. I'm sitting today at the ARE Community Center. It is complete. It is open to the public. Katie Vance is sitting here with me. She is their executive director. Katie, I walked in the door and could not get over how different it looked from when I was here last, which crazily enough was last year's Day of Caring. So it has been nearly a year, but it was still under construction. There were no floors, barely were there windows.
Right.
It is amazing in here now.
Thank you. We've worked really, really hard on this to get to our grand opening and to open the doors and to make sure it's a open and warm, comforting space for people coming through here.
And you've seen that happen. You've seen people come together, be here, and utilize the space. That's got to make you feel good.
Yes, it's been awesome. People come through all day long. So I've been sitting at the front desk just because we don't have volunteers covering the front desk right now, and I can't get any work done because so many people come through the office and they have questions, or they want to seek out resources, or they want to use our closet, or check out the library, or find out more about the events that we're having. And so it's been a great and very utilized resource.
So for someone who isn't familiar with ARE, with what you do here at AIDS Response Effort, give me the overview.
So AIDS Response Effort is an AIDS service organization. So we started about 35 years ago as a group of volunteers out of Valley Health. And a lot of those volunteers still work with the center and they still engage with the center. They were working with folks who were living with HIV or dying from AIDS-related illnesses at the time, and just bringing them food and comfort and care. And so we've grown since then. We're now an HIV service organization. We provide HIV case management for folks living with HIV in the community. We do HIV, STI, and Hep C testing completely free in the community, and so that's been a great resource. We also have a harm reduction program, and we used to have a housing program for the general public, but a couple years ago, we all sat down and had a conversation about what we were referring to as our identity crisis at the time. Are we in housing agency? Are we an HIV service organization? And we decided that it didn't make the most sense for us, so we worked to transition our housing programs out to Horizon Goodwill. And so they are now using that funding and providing housing resources for the general public. And we still have housing for people living with HIV, but the general resources went to them. And we decided to open this LGBTQ center. And so for the last 2.5 years, we've been updating this building. We've been creating programs. We've been building volunteers. And now we are now the RISE Center, which stands for Resources, Inclusion, Support, and Empowerment. So
I love that. That is fantastic.
Thanks.
I feel like HIV is as misunderstood today as it was when it was a full-on epidemic decades ago. People don't understand anything about HIV, and now they're seeing all these commercials on television about how you can be undetected, and I'm afraid thinking it's not a big deal anymore, but it is still a big deal. That free testing is incredibly valuable to our community.
Yeah, so we do rapid testing where you can get your results in 20 minutes, or we have 2 phlebotomists on staff, and they do full blood draws for confirmatory testing. We have a partnership with Valley Health to get folks connected to their transition clinic right away so they can get on medications if they test positive. But we've seen a lot of people test positive since COVID, and we're not really sure why that is. But we've seen a lot more than we've seen previously before COVID. But it is great now because we can, if somebody does test positive, we can get them on medications, and within 1 month to 2 months, they are undetectable, which means they're now untransmittable. And that's an awesome way to make sure that we're preventing HIV transmission in our community. We also have a PrEP program, which is a medication for preventing HIV transmission. And we have partnered with a company called Hey Mister. And before we partnered with them, we had about 2 or 3 people on PrEP. We now have about 200 people on PrEP, which is amazing. So a lot of people are really taking care of themselves and making sure that we're eventually able to end the epidemic as a whole.
It's really about taking that personal responsibility for yourself and being able to save the next person down the line.
And I think it's also a community responsibility. We have a responsibility to continue talking about it and continue making sure that we know our status, that people out there know our status without fear of judgment or without fear of going into a place that might make you feel uncomfortable for talking about some of those things that you have to discuss when you're getting tested for STIs or HIV. And we are really a place where we provide non-judgmental, trauma-informed, and healing-centered care. We also will test when somebody is asymptomatic, and a lot of times insurance companies won't cover testing when somebody is asymptomatic. And so we also have a partnership with our local urgent cares where they will send people here to get free testing done if they are asymptomatic, which is really great. So then people absolutely know their status. We see people come back all the time to get regular testing. It's really great because I think the community conversation needs to continue.
And I remember from my last conversation with ARE, it doesn't just stop at that test positive, test negative, because that can be some startling news.
Sure.
To give to someone and they're not really sure what to do or how to tell their family or any of those things. You help them every step along the way.
Yeah, our testers and our case managers provide that counseling and that support and that understanding, while also letting people know that because of the advances with HIV medication, that people can live long, healthy lives. And so how to get them access to that and how to get them the resources they need. We also have support services. We did have groups for a little while. We're working on getting those back so that people can talk about how they're feeling with their diagnosis, because there is a lot of myths around a positive HIV diagnosis. And we really just want to provide people support, get them access to medication and resources, make sure that they are adherent to their medications, and make sure that they are continuing to get whatever it is that they need. Because the lifetime cost of HIV medication is about $420,000. And so we are here to support some of those, making sure they have access to insurance, making sure that they have access to food, housing, other resources that they may need as a result of having to pay for medications. But we try to cover the whole person.
What do you hear the most that people say in reference to HIV that is wrong, that everybody seems to assume is right?
So when I started working here, I started telling people about where I was working at the AIDS response effort. And the first thing I get from most people is, oh, that's still a thing. And I am often really caught off guard by that, because I can understand why people might think that this myth of, oh, this was an issue that was fixed. But I think that really leaves out the legacy of the hard work that was done by activists, by volunteers, by people living with HIV, and by the companies that created medications, everything that happened as a result to bring together and to really make the advancements that occurred. And it also takes away from this willingness to continue to be tested or continue to protect yourself and those kind of things. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I'm like, well, that's not right. One of the challenges that we had with opening the LGBTQ center is that HIV is not a quote-unquote gay disease as it used to be referred to. And so I think people often still think of that myth, and that's not the case. That's not what we see with our diagnoses. That's not the people who come through our door, although it is, because it affects everybody.
Right.
But it's not just. And so I think that term, I even hate saying it out loud because it feels so gross, but one of the reasons we decided to open the center was that LGBTQ folks were the first line of activists for the HIV epidemic, and LGBTQ folks were most impacted by the community response to the epidemic, both community and government response to the epidemic. And that impact, the people who were most marginalized were gay men and trans women. The LGBTQ community was first to step up and do the work around HIV activism. And so that is the community that we have worked with the longest as a result. And so I think it's really important to note that the LGBTQ Center, while we opened it, is not directly connected to the HIV movement, but it'd be irresponsible for us to have the conversation about one without the other.
Let's take a break. When we
Yes.
come back, I want to talk about some of your programs,
Okay.
some of the things that you have going on here. You mentioned a second ago that you've been sitting out front because you don't have volunteers.
Yes.
So I want to talk about who can volunteer and what your need for those are. Can we do that in the next segment?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, we're going to do all that when we come back. We are sitting today at the ARE Community Center on Piccadilly Street in Old Town Winchester. We're going to come back and talk more with Katie Vance. She is their executive director in just a couple of minutes. In just one day, you can help shape a stronger, more connected community. On September 19th, United Way of Northern Shenandoah Valley will lead Day of Caring, the region's largest single-day volunteer event. Over 900 volunteers will roll up their sleeves to help local nonprofits with projects that matter. Painting classrooms, repairing shelters, planting gardens, organizing food pantries. Whether you're a business looking to sponsor, a nonprofit in need of an extra set of hands, or a neighbor ready to serve, there's a place for you on Day of Caring. This is what community looks like when we come together. This is care in action. Learn how to get involved at unitedwaynsv.org/dayofcaring or email dayofcaring@unitedwaynsv.org. One day, hundreds of hands, lasting impact. Join us. Welcome back to the Valley. Today I am your host, Janet Michael. We are sitting downtown on Piccadilly Street today at the ARE Community Center. Katie Vance is here with me. She is their Executive Director, AIDS Response Effort. Katie, you gave me some history and some background in the first segment, a little bit about some of the services that you provide. I think the free testing is incredibly valuable. I want to remember before we wrap up to ask you an important question about that. But you also have really cool, fun things that can show the people in our community how to support each other, how you support them. You've got a lot of groups or just fun stuff that happens here.
Yeah, we have a lot of great groups. My favorite group is our Stitch and Bridge community group. We just get together and hang out and stitch and complain about all the things that are happening in the world, and I don't even sew, but I like the second half of that group. It's really fun.
I feel like I'd be really good at that part.
It's really fun. And so we also just have a whole bunch of community events that we support. So we have a Dungeons and Dragons group that's starting soon. We have a game night that people come to. Sometimes they'll do board games, sometimes they'll do video games. We have a coffee and coloring that happens every other Friday, so people just at the end of the work week get together and color and hang out with each other, have a cup of coffee. So we have a whole bunch of community groups that we run. We also have affinity groups. So our affinity groups are based on different populations. So we have an LGBTQ youth group. We have a group that is just for anyone LGBTQ. We have a gay RP group, so that is 50 and over. They named it after AARP, and apparently that is the most fun group. They go out and just eat dinner with each other and hang out, and nobody checks ages at the door. If you want to participate in that group,
well, even AARP now is pushing to 30 and 40 something.
No,
so
yeah. No, I think it's that sounds like a really fun group. So they meet on, I think it's the first Monday of the month. And then we have a trans and trans family group. We have a polyamorous group. And any group that doesn't exist that somebody wants, they're welcome to start it or work with a group of friends to start it. They're all completely run by volunteers. And so that's the really cool thing about the center as a whole, is that everything is run by volunteers. All of our community groups, all of our affinity groups, everything.
And you are such a great resource here for parents who maybe have children who have taken the step to say, hey, Mom, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And now Mom's not really sure.
Sure.
What do I do? And how do I talk to them? And have I done all of these things poorly and didn't know that's what I was supposed to do? You really do provide resources to a spectrum of people.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the biggest resource that we have is our library. So it's in an old bank is this building. And so we have this big vault in the back of the building, and we've put our library in there. And one of our volunteers, Augie, has really run with that library. We have hundreds of books. And so anytime a parent comes in, because I have had that happen a few times, I tell them it's amazing that you're here and that you want to get resources instead of just brushing this off and acting like it doesn't exist, and really recognizing your child for who they are. And so then we'll go and look at books that we think might be helpful for them. We have a ton of resources for people. We have community resources. So we just, right before you came in, built our website for our community resource list for LGBTQ affirming spaces in the community, because a lot of folks are looking for legal resources right now or medical resources. And so we want to make sure that's available to folks in the community. But yeah, as soon as somebody walks in the door, I'll make sure they have access to our closet. We have a gender-affirming closet. We have a library. We have a soft space where people can just come in and sit or meet with a therapist or do whatever they want to do. And so we really just try to provide those resources and continue guiding people who may have a lot of questions.
What can I, as a community member, do? Can I volunteer? Obviously, I can write you a check.
Yeah.
Ideally, one with commas.
Yes.
Those are our favorite
My favorite.
checks to nonprofits. But what would you ask the community to do? What can they do to help you as a whole?
I would say checks are the number one thing, always. But beyond that, we have a group of really strong volunteers, and we have a volunteer night every month. And volunteering with the agency is huge. So some of the things we do on those volunteer nights are we will make sure that we're organizing the closet, that we're helping any book donations come in, that we're putting those on the shelf. We have a community garden out back that we built with Home Depot, and so a lot of people like weeding. I don't like weeding, but they can go out there and do that, which is great.
I'm told that it's very relaxing.
Yes.
It releases tension, but I'm
That's
with
what
you.
I've heard,
I was
yeah.
like, no, I don't. I'll keep my tension. Thank you.
Yes. But it is great because we get a ton of vegetables from there that we can give to any clients who access our resources. So really, we need the community to show up. I also would really like to ask the community to start speaking out against some of the language that community members are using and really challenge some of the myths that people are putting out into the community that are really causing true harm. They're causing people to not want to come out or be put in dangerous situations or not want to access resources because they don't feel safe. And that can be really dangerous especially for our youth in our community, our LGBTQ youth. And so I really am hoping that the community will support LGBTQ services, show up and show people that they're here and that they matter and that the community cares about them when they show up to the center.
I would love to build an advocate army.
Me too.
But I am probably not the person that should be putting that army together. I'm going to give them a lot of snark. I'm going to say, here's what you say, and this is how you say it to those people over there in the corner. But there are, I hope, a lot of people in our community that would love to support you in some way, in that way in particular, but they're not really sure what is the proper language.
Right.
How do I approach someone? What should I say when this is said to me?
Yeah.
You can help with that as well.
Oh yeah, so we do a safe zone training, which is a training we've provided for a lot of community organizations and businesses to become an LGBTQ ally. So it teaches about all the language to use, any information that people have questions about. We have a non-judgmental space to provide answers to those questions. We also have little pamphlets in here which are really great that literally spell out how to push back on some of the legal arguments, how to push back on some of the religious arguments that come up, how to engage in those conversations with people so that there really is this mind shift that happens, because you can't just go into a Facebook argument and scream at people.
Arguing never solves a problem.
No. So these are really good resources and information to help people understand the experience of LGBTQ folks and the folks who come through our centers. I'd say our volunteer group is made up of half allies, half LGBTQ folks who come through, and so allies have really shown up and done a lot to support, because it's really important that we make a stand and that we show people that we're here and we care.
And I can come sit at your desk and welcome people as they come in if I've got a couple hours on a Tuesday.
Yes.
There are also physical things that I can come and help you with.
Absolutely. We are going to start opening up desk time so that people can sit at the desk. They'll be trained on all the protocols in the office and know everything that they need to know to be here during the groups that happen so that they can help provide that support. And really just anything. I had somebody come by today who's a former employee who's very excited about helping volunteer to do our social media, because we're running out of funds right now, and the center is completely funded by donations and volunteer time. I mean, it really is not funded by any federal grants or state grants. We did a great founders campaign, but that money is slow to come in now because of the economy and because our federal grants on the other side of the house for our agency are dwindling right now, and we could really use just person power, just people in the seats. We could really use people here providing that support and making sure that we are able to get our job done while the center remains open.
So that was the one question that I wanted to make sure that before we wrapped up I asked you.
Yeah.
Paint a picture for me of what would happen in our community if you suddenly closed your doors and you were gone and didn't exist. It's a terrible picture.
Yeah.
And I don't want to necessarily leave on a bad note, but I feel like
Right.
it's a reality that people need to understand what kind of a positive impact you're having on our community.
I think back to the point I made about testing. So I'll just start with that. So people would have a hard time getting access to testing resources to know their status, which means that you would have folks in the community who are HIV positive without knowing that they're HIV positive. And without having access to medication resources, we could see another epidemic in the community or the nation at large. And that worries me because I think people think that HIV is over and done, like I said, and that's just not the reality. Yes, huge advances have been made, and I think that's amazing, but without continuing that support service or testing services, then I think we really could see HIV cases rise again. I think the other thing is there would be no support services for people living with HIV. And so that means that oftentimes when people have the care that they need, the resources that they need, they're much more likely to be medication adherent, which means that they will be undetectable, therefore untransmittable. I think on the other side of the house with the LGBTQ Center, with the RISE Center, is that those resources will go away, and it will be really hard for youth and LGBTQ folks in their community to see themselves anywhere in the community. Mm-hmm. Now, I do think we have great community resources who show their pride in great ways, like Winchester Book Gallery, like Hideaway Cafe, like places where people can go who've been awesome, like the MSV doing Pride every year, which is great. But I think it's so important for people to see a place where they can go and be safe. And I think when you eliminate resources like that, we know that there's a high risk of suicide for LGBTQ youth.
And now they've lost
yes.
their specific part of 988.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about the higher suicide rates, that's not because of how they identify. That's because of how, in a lot of cases, they're being treated from the outside world.
That's absolutely true. I think it's important to note that because that is a myth that's in the community, that the suicide rates are high just because of their identity. And that is not true at all. The rates are high because of family acceptance and support resources and having people in the community who understand what they have been through, and not having access to that can just cause isolation and loneliness. There's also just community response and negativity, and just I see things on Facebook all the time, horrible things that people are saying that youth are reading, LGBTQ youth are reading and seeing and have a lot of questions about, and without a community of support can just be really damaging. So I appreciate you asking that. That's absolutely true. It's really tragic because I don't know how to explain to a community that you need to care because people matter. And so it's so frustrating because having resources like this helps our community be stronger.
It's so much easier in my mind for people to just stop for a second and think humans first.
Yes.
Everything else is ancillary.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if you're blonde hair, blue-eyed. Yes. Doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter who you love.
Right.
None of that matters. You start being human first,
right,
and everything else will take care of itself.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, why haven't you met with political figures? And I said, it's really difficult for them to meet with us because it's considered a political issue when it's actually not a political issue. It's a human rights issue.
It's a humanitarian
care issue. Yeah. But getting people to see in that direction, since a lot of the community we serve has been so politicized, is really challenging.
Thank you for taking the time to meet with me, though.
Thank you. Yeah.
We didn't get to talk much about your harm reduction program.
Yes.
Can we get another show on the book so you can explain that to me?
Sure. That'd be great. I'd love to talk about harm reduction.
Then that's what we'll do.
Okay.
I will be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of The Valley Today, a few minutes after noon, so meet me here then.